The envelope trembled in Ariadne Blackwood's hands. Final notice, the third one this month. She glanced around the small living room of their Connecticut cottage, where faded furniture and peeling wallpaper told the story of their gradual descent from middle-class comfort to desperate poverty. "Dad!" she called out, her voice sharper than intended. "Dad, where are you?" Theodore Blackwood emerged from his study, eyes bloodshot, hair uncombed. Once a respected investment advisor in their small town of Havenbrook, he now resembled a ghost of his former self. Since her mother's death 2 years ago, everything had fallen apart, piece by piece. "Ariadne," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't hear you come in." She held up the envelope. "Care to explain this? $30,000 to Everett Enterprises? What have you done?" Theodore's face crumpled. He sank into the armchair, hands shaking. "I thought I could turn things around. One big win to get us back on our feet. Gambling? Again? You promised after the last time." "It wasn't like that," Theodore interrupted. "It was an investment opportunity, exclusive, by invitation only." "From who?" "Caleb Everett approached me, said his brother's company was launching something revolutionary, said I could triple my investment before the public announcement." Ariadne felt the blood drain from her face. "You mean Caleb Everett, as in the brother of Thorne Everett, the tech billionaire?" Theodore nodded miserably. "It was supposed to be foolproof, but it wasn't real, was it? The investment was real, but there was fine print. The returns weren't guaranteed, and the penalties for early withdrawal—" His voice trailed off. Ariadne picked up her father's tablet and searched for Thorne Everett. Images appeared of a striking man with dark features, cold grey eyes, and an expression that suggested he found the world perpetually disappointing. Articles described him as ruthless, brilliant, and enigmatic, worth over $11 billion, known for destroying competitors and giving no second chances. "How much do we actually owe him?" "All of it. The house, my pension, everything." The doorbell rang. Ariadne's heart stopped. 2 men in expensive suits stood at the door. Behind them, a sleek black Bentley waited in their gravel driveway, looking impossibly out of place in their working-class neighborhood. "Miss Blackwood?" the taller man asked. "I'm Harrison Wells, legal counsel for Everett Enterprises. May we come in? We have an urgent matter to discuss regarding your father's debt." 5 minutes later, Ariadne sat rigid on the sofa while the lawyers outlined their situation in clinical terms. Theodore had indeed signed everything away. They had 24 hours to vacate the property. "There must be something we can do," Ariadne said, thinking of her half-completed business degree, her part-time waitressing job. "A payment plan, maybe?" Wells exchanged glances with his colleague. "Actually, there is an alternative proposition. Mr. Everett has expressed a personal interest in your case." "What kind of interest?" "He's willing to forgive the entire debt in exchange for a year of your service." "My service?" Ariadne repeated. "Personal assistant, live-in, at his Manhattan residence." Theodore stood up. "Absolutely not. My daughter isn't part of this." "Dad, sit down," Ariadne said quietly. "What exactly would this entail?" "A contractual arrangement. 1 year. You live in his Manhattan residence, follow his rules, accompany him to events. In return, the debt is erased completely. And if I refuse, foreclosure proceedings begin tomorrow. Your father will likely face criminal charges for financial misrepresentation on his loan applications." Ariadne felt trapped. "I need to think about this." "Mr. Everett doesn't offer opportunities twice," Wells said, placing a business card on the coffee table. "He's in town today only, meeting at the Havenbrook Grand Hotel at 7 p.m. if you're interested in discussing terms." After they left, Theodore broke down. "Don't do this, Ari. We'll figure something out." "There's nothing to figure out," she replied, already calculating 1 year of her life for her father's freedom. "I'm meeting him tonight." The Havenbrook Grand Hotel's penthouse suite made Ariadne acutely aware of her simple navy dress and worn shoes. Thorne Everett stood by the window, his back to her, silhouetted against the city lights, taller than she expected, broader shoulders. When he turned, His grey eyes assessed her with clinical detachment. "Miss Blackwood," he said, his voice deeper than she anticipated. "Punctual, that's promising." "Mr. Everett," she replied, chin raised. "I understand you have a proposition." He gestured to the contract on the glass table. "Everything is outlined there. 1 year. You belong to me. You go where I go, do what I ask. No questions. In exchange, your father's debt disappears. Belong to you? I'm not property." A cold smile touched his lips. "For 1 year, that's exactly what you'll be." Ariadne skimmed the contract, stomach churning at terms like complete compliance and at his sole discretion. "Why me? What do you want from me?" Thorne approached, stopping close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. "Let's just say I have my reasons. Do we have a deal, Ariadne?" She took the pen, hand trembling slightly. 1 year. She could survive anything for 1 year. "We have a deal," she whispered, signing her name on the line. Thorne's expression didn't change, but something flashed in his eyes. "Pack your things tonight. My car will collect you at 9 tomorrow morning." As she left, Ariadne couldn't shake the feeling she'd just made a deal with the devil himself. The Bentley slid through Manhattan traffic with silent precision. Ariadne sat in the back seat, her entire life packed into one suitcase beside her. She watched the city transform from commercial districts to the exclusive Upper East Side, where historic brownstones gave way to modern architectural statements of wealth. The driver, a stoic man who'd introduced himself only as Reynolds, hadn't spoken since their departure from Connecticut. The privacy partition remained up, leaving Ariadne alone with her thoughts and the growing knot of anxiety in her stomach. When the car finally stopped, she found herself before a towering glass and steel structure that seemed to pierce the sky itself. Unlike the ornate buildings surrounding it, Thorne's residence was starkly modern, all clean lines and reflective surfaces. "This is it, Miss Blackwood," Reynolds said, opening her door. "Mr. Everett's residence." The lobby felt more like a museum than a home, with its soaring ceilings, minimalist furniture, and abstract sculptures positioned with mathematical precision. A security guard nodded at Reynolds, then eyed Ariadne with undisguised curiosity. "Miss Blackwood will be staying as Mr. Everett's guest," Reynolds explained, though the word guest carried a weight that made Ariadne wince. The private elevator required a fingerprint scan. As they ascended to the penthouse, Ariadne caught glimpses of the city through glass walls, becoming smaller, more distant, as if she were leaving her old life behind with each floor they passed. "Mr. Everett is at the office until this evening," Reynolds informed her as the elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer. "Ms. Hayes will get you settled." A woman stood waiting, tablet in hand. She was perhaps 40, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, her auburn hair pulled back in a severe bun. Despite her formal appearance, her green eyes held a warmth that surprised Ariadne. "Vivienne Hayes," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Mr. Everett's executive assistant. Welcome to the Apex." "The Apex? That's what he calls it. Top of the world, top of his game." Vivienne's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Come, I'll show you around." The tour revealed a space that defied conventional notions of home. 3 stories of interconnected spaces, each more impressive than the last. A living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. A kitchen that looked like it belonged in a Michelin-starred restaurant. A home theater, gym, and indoor pool. "And this," Vivienne said, opening a door on the 2nd level, "is your suite." Ariadne stepped into a space larger than her entire family home in Connecticut. Cream-colored walls, pale hardwood floors, and a king-sized bed draped in crisp white linens. One wall was entirely glass, offering a breathtaking view of the city. "Bathroom through there, closet to the right. We've taken the liberty of providing some basics, but we'll arrange for a stylist tomorrow." "A stylist? That wasn't in the contract." Vivienne's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Everett expects certain standards. Your appearance reflects on him now." "Of course it does," Ariadne muttered. "These are for you," Vivienne said, handing over a sleek smartphone and a folder. The phone is secure and programmed with necessary contacts. The folder contains house rules, schedules, and security protocols. Ariadne flipped through the pages: dress codes, behavior guidelines, restricted areas. This is comprehensive. Mr. Everett values clarity. No misunderstandings that way. When will I see him? He expects you to join him for dinner at 8. Formal attire. Vivian paused. There's something you should know about Mr. Everett. Ariadne looked up. He's not the monster the media makes him out to be, but he's complicated. Keep your expectations low and you might survive your year. After Vivian left, Ariadne unpacked her meager belongings, feeling increasingly out of place. The closet already contained several garment bags. Inside, she found dresses, blouses, and slacks in exactly her size, all with designer labels she'd only seen in magazines. At 7:45, she selected a simple black dress and applied minimal makeup. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror looked both familiar and strange. Ariadne Blackwood playing dress-up in a billionaire's dollhouse. Thorne was already in the dining room when she arrived, examining something on a tablet that he set aside at her entrance. He wore a crisp white shirt open at the collar, his sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms. Without his suit jacket, he seemed marginally more human. "Miss Blackwood," he said, standing, "I trust your accommodations are satisfactory." "They're fine, thank you," she replied, taking the seat a staff member pulled out for her. Dinner proceeded in uncomfortable silence, broken only by the clink of silverware and Thorne's occasional curt instructions to the waiting staff. Ariadne forced herself to eat, despite her lack of appetite, aware of his evaluating gaze. "You have questions," he finally said, setting down his wine glass. Several hundred, actually. A hint of amusement flickered across his features. "You may ask 3 tonight," Ariadne considered carefully. "Why me? You could have simply taken our house, everything we own. Your father's assets barely cover a fraction of what he owes. This arrangement is more interesting." "That's not an answer." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "It's the only one you'll get for that question. Next, what exactly am I expected to do here? Accompany me to business events and social functions. Maintain the image I require. Follow the rules in your folder without exception. And the third question? You should make it count." Ariadne leaned forward. "What happens if I break one of your precious rules?" For the first time, Thorne smiled, a cold, calculating expression that sent a chill down her spine. "Let's hope we don't have to find out." 2 weeks into her new life, Ariadne had memorized Thorne's routines and preferences with the precision of a soldier learning battle formations. Black coffee at 5:30 a.m., car service at 7 a.m. sharp. No interruptions between 4 and 5 p.m. when he reviewed market reports. No music in his presence unless he requested it. No casual conversation unless initiated by him. Tonight was her first official public appearance with Thorne, a charity gala benefiting children's education, hosted at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Vivian had arranged for a stylist who now fussed over Ariadne's appearance in her suite. "Mr. Everett is very particular about these events," the stylist explained, applying the finishing touches to Ariadne's hair. "You'll be photographed. Questions will be asked." "What am I supposed to say?" Ariadne asked, barely recognizing her reflection in the mirror. The emerald gown complemented her pale skin and dark hair, transforming her into someone who looked like she belonged in Thorne's world. "Nothing of substance," Vivian answered from the doorway. She'd entered silently, as was her habit. "You're his companion, not his spokesperson." "His trophy, you mean?" Ariadne muttered. Vivian dismissed the stylist with a nod before responding. "His shield, more accurately. Thorne uses these events strategically. Having you there changes how people approach him." She handed Ariadne a small clutch purse. "Inside is your phone, lipstick, and emergency contact information. Stay within 10 feet of Thorne unless directed otherwise." The museum's grand entrance hall had been transformed into a glittering reception area. Elegant tables surrounded a central dance floor, while waitstaff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Thorn guided Ariadne through the crowd, with his hand lightly touching the small of her back, a possessive gesture that simultaneously established boundaries for anyone watching. "Smile," he murmured as they approached a group of men in tuxedos. "These are potential investors." Ariadne fixed a pleasant expression on her face as Thorn made introductions. She nodded at appropriate intervals, laughed softly at their jokes, and pretended not to notice how they evaluated her like an interesting acquisition. "Thorn, you've been holding out on us," one man said, his gaze lingering on Ariadne. "Where have you been hiding this lovely creature?" "Miss Blackwood recently joined my staff as a special consultant," Thorn replied smoothly. "She has a unique perspective on emerging markets." The lie was delivered so convincingly that Ariadne almost believed it herself. As the evening progressed, she noticed a tall man watching them from across the room. Unlike the others in standard black tie, he wore a midnight blue tuxedo that stood out among the sea of black. His resemblance to Thorn was striking, though his features were softer, his smile more practiced. "Who is that?" she whispered to Thorn during a momentary lull. "Caleb," he replied, his voice hardening. "My half-brother. Try to avoid him." Too late. Caleb Everett was already approaching, champagne flute in hand and charm radiating from him like heat from a fire. "Brother," he said, embracing Thorn with what appeared to be genuine affection, though Ariadne noticed how Thorn stiffened at the contact. "And who is this vision?" "Ariadne Blackwood," she answered, before Thorn could speak. "I work with Mr. Everett." "How fascinating," Caleb said, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips. "Thorn never mentioned acquiring such a delightful new asset." "Miss Blackwood is not a topic for discussion," Thorn said coldly. "Shouldn't you be charming potential investors for that pet project of yours?" "Always business with you," Caleb sighed dramatically. "I was hoping we could discuss the Meridian project tonight. The board is pressing for updates." "My office, Tuesday, 9 a.m. "Always so accommodating," Caleb replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He turned to Ariadne. "A pleasure meeting you, Miss Blackwood. I hope my brother appreciates what he has." As he walked away, Ariadne felt Thorn's grip on her waist tighten almost painfully. "I told you to avoid him," he said under his breath. "He approached us, not the other way around." A waiter stumbled nearby, splashing champagne dangerously close to Ariadne's gown. Without thinking, she stepped back, colliding with a woman who immediately spilled her drink down the back of Ariadne's dress. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," the woman exclaimed, though her tone suggested otherwise. She was stunning, with platinum blonde hair and a red dress that left little to the imagination. "Thorn, darling, is this your latest project?" The chill in Thorn's eyes could have frozen hellfire. "Ariadne, this is Vanessa Reed, my former fiancée." Former. The word hung in the air between them. "Charming," Vanessa said, eyeing Ariadne dismissively. "Though a bit young, don't you think, even for you, Thorn?" "I think what Mr. Everett appreciates is professionalism and discretion," Ariadne replied, her voice steady despite the cold liquid seeping through her dress. "Qualities that appear to be in short supply tonight." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Quite a tongue on this one. Does she speak to the board that way too?" "Miss Reed," Thorn interrupted, his voice dangerously soft, "you're making a scene, again. Some things never change." Vanessa flashed a brittle smile. "Do tell your little pet to watch her step. This world eats naive girls for breakfast." With that, she sauntered away, leaving a trail of whispers in her wake. Thorn guided Ariadne toward the restrooms. "Get cleaned up. I'll wait here." In the privacy of the powder room, Ariadne tried to blot the stain from her dress while processing the encounter. Vanessa's hostility felt personal, as if Ariadne had somehow wronged her merely by existing. When she emerged, she was surprised to find Thorn still waiting, his expression unreadable. "You handled that well," he said unexpectedly. "The dress is ruined." "I meant Vanessa. Most people crumble under her attacks." Ariadne shrugged. "I've worked in food service. I've dealt with worse." For a fleeting moment, something almost like respect flickered in Thorn's eyes. Then the mask returned, and he offered his arm with cool detachment. "We've made our appearance. We're leaving." They rode back to the apex in silence, though Ariadne could feel tension radiating from Thorn. Something about the encounter with Caleb and Vanessa had disturbed his carefully maintained composure. As the elevator ascended to the penthouse, he finally spoke. "You asked why I chose you, Ariadne." She turned to face him, surprised by the use of her first name. "In this world," he continued, "everyone wants something from me. My money, my influence, my name." He stepped closer, studying her face as if searching for something. "But you look at me and see only a debt collector, an inconvenience to be endured. Do you have any idea how refreshing that is?" For one startling moment, Ariadne glimpsed something beneath the billionaire's armor, a flash of genuine human vulnerability. Then the elevator doors opened, and Thorn Everett stepped back. Once again, the untouchable titan of industry. "Good night, Miss Blackwood," he said, turning away. "You performed admirably tonight." As Ariadne watched him disappear down the hallway, she realized with unsettling clarity that beneath his cold exterior might be a man far more complex and dangerous than she had imagined. The Everett Technologies quarterly report lay open on Ariadne's tablet, figures and projections swimming before her tired eyes. 3 hours into her research, and she was no closer to understanding why Thorn had assigned her this task with the cryptic instruction to find the anomaly. A month had passed since the gala, and the dynamic between them had shifted subtly. Thorn still maintained his distance, but occasionally he would ask her opinion on business matters or request her presence during his evening review of company operations. Tonight, the apex was unnervingly quiet. Thorn had left for an emergency board meeting, and even the usual staff had been dismissed early. Only Vivian remained, working in her office down the hall. Ariadne stood, stretching muscles cramped from sitting too long. As she paced the study, her attention drifted to the framed photographs on Thorn's desk, the only personal items in the otherwise sterile space. One showed a much younger Thorn with an older man who shared his stern features, presumably his father. Another captured a woman with kind eyes, who must have been his mother. The third photo was partially concealed behind the others, a family portrait with a teenage Thorn, his parents, and a young boy who could only be Caleb. What struck Ariadne was how separated Caleb appeared, standing slightly apart from the others, his smile forced. "You shouldn't be touching his things," Ariadne started at Vivian's voice. "I was just looking where you shouldn't," Vivian finished, though without rancor. She entered, setting a folder on the desk. "Find anything interesting?" "Not in the reports," Ariadne admitted, "but these photos." Vivian glanced at them. "The Everett family saga, not a happy tale. What happened between Thorn and Caleb?" At the gala, the tension was palpable. Vivian hesitated, then gestured for Ariadne to sit. "This stays between us." She waited for Ariadne's nod before continuing. "Caleb is the result of the elder Mr. Everett's affair. He was 11 when his mother died, and he came to live with the family. Thorn was 16. The boys were never close, but after their father died, things deteriorated. Caleb believed he deserved an equal share of everything, despite the terms of the will. And Thorn disagreed. Thorn followed his father's wishes to the letter. He gave Caleb a position in the company, a generous trust fund, but maintained controlling interest himself. Caleb has resented him ever since. "That doesn't explain why Thorn is so cold." Vivian's expression tightened. "That's not my story to tell." A crash of thunder punctuated her words as rain began lashing against the windows. New York's famous skyline disappeared behind sheets of water. "I should get back to work," Vivian said, rising. "Thorn will be home soon. The storm's grounding all flights." After she left, Ariadne returned to the financial reports, but her focus had shattered. The quiet of the penthouse now felt oppressive, full of untold stories and buried secrets. Hours later, she was startled awake by a crash. She'd fallen asleep on the study couch, reports scattered around her. The sound came again, glass breaking, followed by a muffled curse. Ariadne followed the noise to Thorn's private study, a room she'd been explicitly forbidden to enter. The door stood ajar, spilling light into the darkened hallway. She peered inside. Thorne stood with his back to her, one hand braced against his desk, the other clutching a tumbler of amber liquid. His suit jacket lay discarded on the floor, his tie loosened. A shattered glass lay in pieces by the wall. "Damn him," he muttered, the words slurred. "Damn him to hell!" Ariadne should have retreated. Instead, she pushed the door wider. "Mr. Everett!" He whirled, eyes wild, unfocused. For a moment, he didn't seem to recognize her. "What are you doing here?" "I heard a crash." "Are you all right?" A harsh laugh escaped him. "All right? No, Miss Blackwood, I'm not all right. My duplicitous half-brother is systematically undermining my authority with the board. My former fiancée is spreading vicious rumors about my personal life. And to top it all off, I've just learned my most trusted advisor has been selling company secrets to our competitors." He swayed slightly, and Ariadne realized he was drunk, perhaps the first crack in his perfect composure she'd witnessed. "Let me help you," she said, approaching cautiously. "Help me?" Thorne laughed again, the sound brittle and sharp. "No one helps me, Miss Blackwood. People use me, they lie to me, they betray me, but they never, ever help me." "I'm not them," she said quietly, reaching for the tumbler in his hand. His fingers caught her wrist, his grip firm, but not painful. "No," he said, studying her face with sudden intensity. "You're not, are you? That's the problem." Lightning flashed, illuminating his features in stark relief. For the first time, Ariadne saw beyond the calculating businessman to the wounded man beneath. "What happened tonight?" she asked. Thorne released her wrist, turning away. "Caleb presented a proposal to the board, a new direction for the company, one that would effectively remove me from day-to-day operations. Can he do that?" "Not without majority support." Thorne sank into his chair. "Which he's been cultivating behind my back for months." Ariadne hesitated, then began gathering the broken glass. "What will you do?" "Fight back. I always do." He watched her through half-closed eyes. "Why are you still here, Ariadne? Your contract doesn't require cleaning up my messes." The use of her first name caught her off guard. "Maybe I'm not doing it because of the contract." Something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability quickly masked by suspicion. "Everyone has an agenda." "Not everyone. Vanessa did," he said bitterly. "She wormed her way into my life, made me believe she cared, all while feeding information to Caleb. Did you know they were lovers? The whole time we were engaged." The pieces clicked into place. His distrust, his isolation, his obsession with control. "I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a valuable lesson." He drained his glass. "Trust no one. Expect nothing. Feel nothing." "That's not living," Ariadne said. "That's just existing." Thunder rumbled. Closer now. The storm intensified, rain hammering against the windows like desperate fists. Thorne stood abruptly, moving to the wall of glass that overlooked the city, now a blur of lights through the deluge. "Do you know what it's like?" he asked, voice barely audible above the storm. "To realize everyone around you is wearing a mask, that nothing is real." Before she could answer, he continued, words tumbling out as if a dam had broken. "My father taught me that emotions were weakness, business was everything. Then he died, and I discovered his second family, his real family, he called them in his private letters. We were just for show, my mother and I. Respectable front for his corporate image." Ariadne stood frozen, witnessing the unraveling of a man who prided himself on control. "Your father's sins aren't yours," she said finally. Thorne turned, his expression raw. "Aren't they? The great Thorne Everett legacy? Use people, discard them, move on. You're not doing that with me, aren't I?" He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath, see the pain in his eyes. "What do you call our arrangement, Ariadne?" "I bought you, like property." "To save my father," she countered. "That's different, is it?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Or am I just repeating the pattern, taking what I want without regard for the consequences?" Ariadne found herself unable to look away from his gaze, from the battle raging behind those grey eyes. For a breathless moment, she thought he might kiss her, and more shocking still, she realized she might let him. Instead, he stepped back, the moment shattering like the glass on the floor. "You should go," he said, his voice once again the controlled, distant tone she recognized, the mask sliding back into place. "It's late. Thorn, good night, Miss Blackwood." Dismissed, Ariadne retreated to the door, but she paused on the threshold, looking back at the solitary figure silhouetted against the storm. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "I think there's more to you than your father's legacy." She closed the door before he could respond, but not before she glimpsed his expression, a flash of something that might have been hope, quickly extinguished by years of practiced cynicism. As she made her way to her suite, Ariadne realized with growing unease that her feelings for Thorn Everett were becoming dangerously complicated. She had seen beneath his armor tonight, glimpsed the wounded soul he kept hidden from the world. And despite everything, the contract, the power imbalance, the impossible situation, she found herself wanting to see more. Morning light streamed through the windows as Ariadne entered Vivian's office, clutching her tablet. 3 days had passed since the storm and Thorn's unexpected confession. Since then, he'd avoided her entirely, departing before dawn and returning long after she'd retired for the night. "You look like you haven't slept," Vivian observed, glancing up from her computer. "I haven't," Ariadne admitted, setting her tablet on the desk. "I think I found that anomaly Thorn mentioned." Vivian raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Ariadne pulled up the quarterly financial reports. "Here in the R&D expenditures for Project Meridian, the numbers don't match the approved budget." "By how much?" "Almost $7 million. Money allocated but apparently never spent." Vivian's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "And you found this on your own?" "Thorn asked me to look for discrepancies." "Yes, but..." Vivian studied Ariadne with new interest. "Most people wouldn't have caught this. It's buried under 3 layers of subsidiary accounts. I was an accounting major before..." Ariadne gestured vaguely. "All this." Vivian was silent for a long moment, then came to a decision. She locked her office door and activated a privacy screen on the windows. "I'm going to trust you, Ariadne," she said, her voice low, "because I think Thorn does, whether he admits it or not." She unlocked a drawer in her desk, extracting a flash drive. "I've been tracking irregularities for months. Small discrepancies that add up to a very disturbing pattern." "What kind of pattern?" "Systematic undermining of Everett Technologies' flagship products, project delays, unexpected budget overruns, strategic information leaking to competitors." She inserted the drive into her computer. "I believe someone is sabotaging the company from within." Ariadne felt a chill. "Caleb, I can't prove it yet, but yes, that's my suspicion." Vivian turned her screen so Ariadne could see. "These are coded communications I've intercepted from his private server." The documents were heavily encrypted, but patterns emerged even in the seemingly random strings of characters. "You've been spying on him?" "Protecting Thorn," Vivian corrected. "I've worked for him for 15 years. I was there when his father died, when Vanessa betrayed him. I've watched him build walls around himself, cut himself off from any genuine human connection." She studied Ariadne intently. "Then he brought you here. Of all the ways he could have collected Theodore's debt, he chose this. Why do you think that is?" "I don't know," Ariadne answered honestly. "He said something about me not wanting anything from him." "Exactly. In his world, that's unheard of." Vivian tapped a key, bringing up more documents. "I need your help, Ariadne. I can't monitor everything alone. Caleb's planning something big, something that could destroy everything Thorn has built." "Why tell me? Why not Thorn?" "Because he wouldn't believe me without ironclad proof. Not about Caleb. Despite everything, there's a part of him that still wants to believe in family." Ariadne considered the risk. Getting involved in corporate espionage wasn't exactly covered in her contract, but the memory of Thorn's vulnerability during the storm pushed her to nod. "What do you need me to do?" 2 weeks later, Ariadne sat beside Thorn in his private helicopter as they flew toward his Newport estate. Thunder rumbled in the distance, another storm approaching, both literally and figuratively. Since her alliance with Vivian, she'd been collecting evidence of Caleb's activities, small pieces of a larger puzzle that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Project Meridian, Thorn's revolutionary new neural interface technology, was being systematically sabotaged to fail spectacularly at launch, a failure that would not only tank the company's stock, but potentially harm actual users. All while, Caleb positioned himself as the savior waiting in the wings. "You're unusually quiet," Thorn remarked, breaking the silence that had stretched between them since takeoff. "Just admiring the view," she lied, watching lightning flash over the Atlantic. In truth, she was debating whether to reveal what she knew. Vivian had urged caution, insisting they needed more proof before confronting Thorn. The Newport estate, referred to simply as The Point, was a modernist masterpiece of glass and stone perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Unlike the apex's cold sterility, this space felt more personal, the furnishings warmer, the artwork more eclectic. "This was my mother's favorite place," Thorn said unexpectedly as they entered. "She designed most of it herself." "It's beautiful," Ariadne replied, genuinely impressed. "Different from what I expected. Different from the Manhattan fortress." A hint of amusement colored his voice. "I do occasionally appreciate beauty, Miss Blackwood." His gaze lingered on her face a moment too long, sending an unexpected flutter through her chest. Since the night of the storm, something had shifted between them, an unspoken awareness, a current of tension neither acknowledged. The housekeeper showed Ariadne to her room, a stunning space with panoramic ocean views. By the time she'd freshened up and changed for dinner, rain was falling in earnest, waves crashing against the cliffs below. Thorn waited in the dining room, having traded his business suit for dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that softened his usual forbidding appearance. For a moment, Ariadne could imagine him as just a man, not a billionaire with the weight of an empire on his shoulders. "Perfect timing," he said, pulling out her chair. "I've been told the storm will intensify tonight. We may lose power." "Is that why we're here? To ride out a storm?" "Among other reasons." He poured wine into her glass. "The Newport location is hosting beta testing for Project Meridian next week. I wanted to review the facilities personally." Meridian, the project Caleb was sabotaging. Ariadne's hand tightened around her glass. "Something wrong?" Thorn asked, too perceptive to miss her reaction. "No, A tremendous crack of thunder interrupted her, followed immediately by darkness as the power failed. Emergency lights activated, casting the room in a soft blue glow. Thorn moved with practiced ease, lighting candles placed strategically around the dining room. "Happens regularly during coastal storms," he explained. "The generators will kick in shortly for essential systems, but we'll be on emergency power tonight." The candlelight transformed the space, softening edges and creating an unexpected intimacy. Thorn seemed different here, more relaxed. The hard lines of his face gentled in the flickering light. Dinner proceeded with surprising ease, their conversation flowing more naturally than ever before. Thorn spoke of his early business ventures, his vision for neural interface technology, even sharing amusing anecdotes about corporate rivals. Ariadne found herself laughing, drawn in by this unfamiliar, almost charming version of the man she'd thought she understood. "You should do that more often," he said suddenly. "Do what?" "Laugh." He studied her over the rim of his wineglass. "It transforms you." Heat rose to her cheeks. "I haven't had much reason to lately." "No," he agreed, his expression sobering. "I suppose you haven't." After dinner, they moved to the library where a fire had been lit in the massive stone fireplace. Rain lashed against the windows, the storm now at full fury, waves visible in flashes of lightning as they crashed against the cliffs below. "It's magnificent," Ariadne said, watching nature's display. "Terrifying, you mean?" Thorn stood beside her at the window, closer than strictly necessary. All that raw power, completely beyond human control. "Not everything needs to be controlled." His eyes met hers. something dangerous flickering in their depths, doesn't it? The air between them seemed to crackle with the same electricity as the storm outside. Ariadne became acutely aware of his proximity, of the clean scent of his cologne, of how his sweater sleeve brushed against her arm. "Thorn," she began, not even aware she'd used his first name. "There's something I need to tell you. About Project Meridian." His expression sharpened. "What about it?" "I've been working with Vivian. We've found evidence of—" A deafening crash interrupted her as a section of the cliff face collapsed, visible through the window. The entire house seemed to tremble with the force of the storm. "That can wait," Thorn said decisively. "We need to move to the secure room. This section of the property isn't stable during storms like this." He guided her through darkened hallways to what appeared to be a panic room at the center of the house. Unlike the cold, militaristic space she'd expected, this was a comfortable den, with reinforced walls and its own generator. "My mother's idea," Thorn explained, activating systems that hummed to life. She believed safety didn't have to mean discomfort. The room contained a small kitchenette, comfortable seating, and a queen-sized bed in the corner. Ariadne tried not to focus on the latter. "You were saying something about Meridian," Thorn prompted, handing her a glass of water. Ariadne took a deep breath. "Vivian and I have been tracking irregularities in the project, financial discrepancies, testing anomalies, leaked specifications." Thorn's expression darkened. "Sabotage? We think so, and we believe Caleb is behind it." She expected denial, anger, dismissal. Instead, Thorn simply looked tired. "Show me what you found." Ariadne pulled out her tablet, displaying the evidence they'd compiled. Thorn studied it in silence, his face increasingly grim. "If he succeeds," she concluded, "the interface could cause neurological damage to users, the company would be destroyed, and Caleb would be positioned to take control of whatever remains." Thorn set the tablet aside, rubbing his eyes. "I suspected something, but this is beyond even what I imagined him capable of." "You're not surprised?" "Disappointed, but not surprised." He moved to the window, watching rain streak the bulletproof glass. "He's always wanted what was mine. But risking people's lives? We can stop him. Vivian has a plan to—" "No," Thorn interrupted, turning back to her. "I'll handle this. You've done enough, more than enough. This isn't your battle. It became my battle when I signed your contract. A decision you were forced into to save your father." "At first, yes." Ariadne stood, approaching him slowly. "But now—" Thunder crashed outside, the storm reaching its peak. In the artificial calm of the secure room, something equally powerful was building between them, a tension too long denied. "Now?" Thorn prompted, his voice low. "Now I'm choosing to help you, not because of any contract." His eyes searched hers, looking for deception, for ulterior motives. Finding none, his expression shifted to something she'd never seen before, a raw vulnerability that made her heart race. "Why?" he asked simply. "Because I've seen who you really are, Thorn. Behind the walls, and the control and the power. I've seen the man who still keeps his mother's favorite books, who creates safe spaces that are also beautiful, who could crush my father but chose another path." She was close enough now to see the pulse hammering in his throat, to feel the heat radiating from his body. "Ariadne," he whispered, her name sounding like both a warning and a prayer. The last of her hesitation dissolved. She reached up, her palm against his cheek. "Not everything needs to be controlled." For one breathless moment, he remained perfectly still. Then, with a sound like surrender, he pulled her against him, his mouth finding hers in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something fierce and hungry and desperate. Ariadne melted into him, months of tension transmuting into desire so intense it left her trembling. His hands tangled in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss as she clutched at his shoulders, his back, needing him closer still. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the look in his eyes nearly undid her. Wonder and heat, and a vulnerability that told her this moment was as unexpected for him as it was for her. "This changes everything," he said, his voice rough. "I know. If this is because of the contract, Because you feel obligated. She silenced him with another kiss, this one softer but no less certain. This has nothing to do with any contract. This is just me and you. Outside, the storm raged on, waves crashing against the cliffs with relentless power. But within the secure room, as clothing gave way to skin against skin and whispered confessions, a different kind of storm was breaking, one that would transform them both in ways neither could have anticipated. The young woman who had been sold to a billionaire and the man who had bought her both surrendered to something neither had expected. Genuine, irresistible connection that defied every wall and defense they'd built. And as the night deepened around them, neither noticed the blinking light on Ariadne's abandoned tablet, an urgent message from Vivian warning that their investigation had been compromised. Morning light filtered through the secure room's windows when Ariadne awoke. Beside her, Thorn slept peacefully, his features softened in slumber, one arm still draped protectively across her waist. For a moment, she allowed herself to savor the impossible intimacy of the moment before reality intruded. Her tablet, the blinking notification. Carefully extracting herself from Thorn's embrace, she retrieved the device. Vivian's message was terse. Security breach. All files accessed. Return immediately. Trust no one. Cold dread washed over her. She glanced at Thorn, conflicted. Last night had changed everything. Or had it? In the harsh light of day, doubt crept in. Had she been naive to believe their connection was genuine? Before she could decide whether to wake him, the tablet chimed with an incoming video call from Caleb Everett. Heart racing, Ariadne accepted the call, moving to the bathroom and closing the door. Caleb's smile was triumphant. "Good morning, Miss Blackwood. Enjoying your arrangement with my brother? What do you want?" "Just to congratulate you on your performance. Seducing Thorn while spying for me. Brilliant work. I never—" "Oh, but you did." His smile widened. "Every file you and Vivian accessed was monitored. Every piece of evidence you collected was sent directly to me. And now I have proof that Thorn's latest pet has been working against him from inside his own home." Ariadne's blood ran cold. "You set us up." "Of course I did. And now I have everything I need to destroy my brother completely." He leaned forward. "When he sees the evidence, your confidential discussions with Vivian, your access to restricted files, all while your father mysteriously receives monthly payments from an offshore account linked to me, who do you think he'll believe? You're lying about my father." "Am I?" "Check his accounts. The payments started the day you moved in with Thorn." The bathroom door opened. Thorn stood there, expression unreadable, phone in hand. "Ah, perfect timing," Caleb said. "Brother, your little virgin has been quite busy." Thorn ended the call, his eyes never leaving Ariadne's face. "Explain." "Thorn, it's not what it looks like. Vivian and I were investigating Caleb while accessing restricted company files, sending encrypted messages, meeting with former employees." His voice remained controlled, but ice had crept back into his eyes. "And your father receiving payments from Caleb's shell company?" "I didn't know about any payments. I swear I was trying to help you. By going behind my back." He stepped closer, his expression hardening with each word. "Just like Vanessa, just like everyone else who claimed to care." "Last night wasn't a lie," Ariadne whispered. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, pain, longing quickly masked by cold fury. "Get dressed. The helicopter leaves in 30 minutes. The journey back to Manhattan passed in agonizing silence. At the apex, security personnel waited to escort Ariadne to her room, where she found Vivian already packing her belongings. "I'm sorry," Vivian said, her face drawn. "Caleb was 3 steps ahead of us. He made it look like we were the ones sabotaging Meridian. Thorn believes we betrayed him. Of course he does. That's what Caleb wanted." An hour later, Ariadne stood in Thorn's office for what she knew would be the last time. He sat behind his desk, once again the untouchable CEO, no trace of the man who had held her through the night. "Your contract is terminated," he said without preamble. "Your father's debt remains forgiven as agreed. You will leave today and have no further contact with me or anyone at Everett Enterprises." "Thorn, please." "Mr. Everett," he corrected coldly. "Last night was a lapse in judgment, nothing more." Tears burned in her eyes. "You know that's not true." For a moment something cracked in his facade, a glimpse of the pain beneath the anger. Then it was gone, replaced by impenetrable resolve. "Goodbye, Miss Blackwood." As security escorted her from the building, Ariadne made a silent vow. She would clear her name, she would expose Caleb's plot, and somehow she would make Thorn Everett see the truth, not just about her innocence, but about the reality of what had grown between them. A reality too powerful to be destroyed by lies, no matter how convincing. The tiny Havenbrook apartment felt like a prison. 3 weeks since her expulsion from Thorn's world, and Ariadne still jumped at every notification on her phone, hoping against hope it might be him. It never was. Her father watched her with worried eyes as she paced the cramped living room. "Sweetheart, you need to let this go. You fulfilled your contract. We're free." "It's not about the contract anymore, Dad." She couldn't explain how her heart ached for a man who believed she had betrayed him, how the memory of that night during the storm haunted her dreams. "Then what is it about?" Before she could answer, her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Ariadne?" Vivian's voice, tense and hurried. "Don't hang up. I don't have much time." "Vivian, how did you—" "Listen carefully. Caleb's plan is worse than we thought. Meridian launches next week at the Empire State Building. The sabotaged interface will cause neurological damage to the demonstration volunteers. Thorn will be ruined, possibly facing criminal charges." Ariadne's blood ran cold. "Have you told Thorn?" "I've tried. He won't see me, won't take my calls. Caleb has him completely isolated, convinced everyone close to him is compromised." "Then what can we do?" "I've been gathering evidence on my own, but I need help. There's a hacker, Marcus Chen. He worked for Everett Tech before Caleb had him fired. He might be able to access the code and prove the sabotage." Ariadne scribbled down the address Vivian provided. "What about my father?" "Caleb said he's been receiving payments." "He has. I traced them. Caleb set up an automated system in your father's name, making it look like he was being paid for information. Your father likely has no idea." After ending the call, Ariadne turned to Theodore. "Dad, I need you to check your bank records for any unusual deposits." His confused expression quickly shifted to shock as they discovered monthly payments from an offshore account, payments that began the day she moved into Thorn's penthouse. "I never authorized these," Theodore whispered. "Ariadne, what's happening?" "Caleb Everett is happening, and I'm going to stop him." Marcus Chen operated from a converted warehouse in Brooklyn's industrial district. The former Everett Technologies security expert eyed Ariadne suspiciously when she explained her connection to Thorn. "Why should I help the man who fired me?" he asked, arms crossed. "Because Thorn didn't fire you. Caleb did, using Thorn's authority." Marcus's expression shifted. "I knew something was off. The termination came after I flagged unusual activity in the Meridian code. For hours, they worked together. Marcus diving into the encrypted code, while Ariadne and Vivienne compiled evidence of Caleb's manipulations. What emerged was a disturbing picture. Caleb had systematically isolated Thorn, turned board members against him, and positioned himself to take control after Meridian's catastrophic failure. "We need to get this to Thorn before the launch," Ariadne said, looking at the damning evidence. "He's not taking calls from anyone associated with you," Vivian replied. "And security at Everett Tower has my photo flagged. Then we go to the source." Ariadne studied the Meridian launch details. "We stopped this at the Empire State Building demonstration. The night before the launch, Ariadne stood in front of her father, determination hardening her resolve. "I love him, Dad," she said simply. "Behind all those walls, there's a good man who's been betrayed by everyone he ever trusted. I won't let Caleb destroy him." Theodore embraced her. "Then go get him, sweetheart, and this time bring him home to meet your old man properly." The Meridian launch event transformed the Empire State Building's observation deck into a showcase for the future of neural interface technology. Security was tight, But with Vivian's help, Ariadne secured a server technician's uniform and badge. Her heart thundered as she navigated service corridors, Marcus's flash drive clutched in her hand. If she could reach the main demonstration computer before the interface went live, they could prevent disaster. If not, she rounded a corner and froze. Standing before her, expression thunderous, was Thorne Everett himself. "Security flagged an unauthorized access to this level," he said, voice cold. "I should have known it would be you." Ariadne straightened, meeting his gaze directly. "Then hear me out before you call security. 1 minute, Thorne. That's all I ask." Something in her eyes must have reached him because he nodded once. 1 minute. Caleb sabotaged Meridian. If the demonstration proceeds, people will be hurt. I can prove it, all of it. His manipulation, the fake payments to my father, everything. She held out the flash drive. 60 seconds to save your company and your reputation. Your choice. For a heartbeat that felt like eternity, Thorne stared at the small device. Then slowly, he reached out and took it. "One chance," he said. "That's all you get." The Empire State Building observation deck buzzed with anticipation. Tech journalists, investors, and industry leaders gathered around the sleek demonstration platform where volunteers waited to experience Meridian's neural interface. At the center of it all stood Caleb Everett, resplendent in a midnight blue suit, playing the role of gracious host while Thorne was conspicuously absent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caleb addressed the crowd, "today marks a revolution in human-computer interaction. Meridian will transform how we connect with technology and with each other." From her position near the server bank, Ariadne watched anxiously. After taking the flash drive, Thorne had disappeared without a word. Had he believed her, or was security already on its way to remove her? "Before we begin," Caleb continued, "I regret to inform you that my brother is dealing with urgent personal matters and won't be joining us. As acting CTO, I'll be overseeing today's demonstration." A ripple of whispers passed through the crowd. Ariadne's heart sank. Had Thorne abandoned his own company's launch? The first volunteer approached the neural interface headset. Caleb lifted it with theatrical flourish, preparing to place it on the woman's head. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The commanding voice cut through the murmurs. The crowd parted as Thorne Everett strode into the room, flanked by Marcus Chen and 2 security officers. Ariadne's breath caught at the sight of him, perfectly composed in his tailored suit, yet with an intensity in his eyes she'd never seen before. "Thorne." Caleb's smile remained fixed, though his eyes hardened. "How unexpected. I thought you were occupied with those security concerns." "I was," Thorne replied, voice carrying easily across the now silent room. "It seems someone tampered with Meridian's code, implementing unauthorized changes that would cause severe neurological feedback in users." Gasps rippled through the audience. The volunteer stepped hastily away from the headset. "Ridiculous," Caleb scoffed. "The interface has been thoroughly tested." "Has it?" Thorne approached the platform, utterly commanding the space. "Then you won't mind if we review the code right now, publicly." He nodded to Marcus, who connected his laptop to the main display screen. Lines of code scrolled before the astonished audience, with Marcus highlighting the malicious alterations. "This is absurd," Caleb sputtered, his composure cracking. "This man was fired for incompetence." "He was fired because he discovered your sabotage," Thorne interrupted. "Just as you orchestrated the removal of everyone who might expose your plans." Security officers moved to flank Caleb, whose face had drained of color. "You have no proof I did this," he hissed. "Actually," said a familiar voice, "we have quite a lot." Vivian stepped forward, holding a tablet. "Financial records showing your offshore payments, communications with competitors, and, of course, the elegant frame job you constructed to discredit me and Miss Blackwood." Caleb's eyes darted frantically, searching for escape. "This is a setup. Thorne's always been jealous of my vision for the company." "Your vision," Thorne's voice was dangerously quiet, "was your vision to harm innocent people, to destroy what our father built?" "Our father?" Caleb's laugh was brittle. He was never my father. I was the mistake, the secret, the embarrassment to be hidden away. Everything was always for you, Thorn, his golden boy. Ariadne watched pain flash across Thorn's face. Old wounds reopened. That wasn't my doing, Thorn said quietly, and it doesn't justify this. Security led a still protesting Caleb away as Thorn addressed the stunned audience, explaining that the launch would be postponed, pending a complete security review. His poise never wavered, his authority absolute, as he navigated the crisis with masterful control. Ariadne remained in the background, relief washing over her. It was over. Thorn was safe. His company would survive. That should be enough, she told herself as she slipped toward the exit. She'd accomplished what she came to do. Ariadne, her name in his voice stopped her instantly. She turned to find Thorn standing just feet away, his expression unreadable. "You're leaving?" he asked. "I thought that would be best." The conference room had emptied, leaving them in rare privacy. Thorn approached slowly, as if afraid she might flee. "You risked everything," he said. "Your reputation, your safety. Why?" The question hung between them, laden with everything unsaid. Ariadne met his gaze steadily. "You know why." His carefully maintained control seemed to falter. "Say it, please." "Because I love you," she said simply. "The real you, not the billionaire or the businessman. Just you, Thorn." Something broke in his expression then, the last wall crumbling. In 2 swift steps, he closed the distance between them, pulling her into his arms with desperate intensity. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered against her hair. "When I saw the evidence Caleb fabricated, I wanted to believe it was a lie, but you've spent your life being betrayed by those you trusted," she finished for him. "I understand." He drew back just enough to look into her eyes. "No more contracts, no more arrangements. Just us as equals, if that's what you want." "It's all I've ever wanted." His kiss was different this time, not desperate or hungry, but tender, a promise. When they separated, they found Vivian watching them with undisguised satisfaction. "About time," she said. "Now shall we go fix your company, Mr. Everett?" 1 month later. Snow dusted the grounds of the Vermont estate as Ariadne stood by the window, watching Thorn and her father deep in conversation on the terrace. The transformation in both men over recent weeks had been remarkable. Theodore regaining his confidence as he advised Thorn on ethical investment practices, Thorn gradually shedding the armor he'd worn for so long. Strong arms encircled her from behind, and she leaned back against Thorn's chest. "What were you and my father discussing so intently?" she asked. "The future," he replied, his voice warm against her ear, "and his blessing." He turned her gently to face him, then sank to one knee, producing a small velvet box. "No contracts this time," he said, opening it to reveal a stunning emerald ring. "Just a promise to love you, to trust you, to build something real with you, Ariadne." Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, words failing her entirely. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Ariadne marveled at the journey that had brought them here. From a cold business arrangement to a love powerful enough to heal them both. A billionaire who had purchased her freedom had ultimately given her something far more precious, his heart. And that, she knew with absolute certainty, was a treasure beyond price. The summer sun cast golden light across the expansive lawn of the Everett Foundation headquarters. Once Thorn's private Vermont estate, the property now served as both their family home and the center of operations for their non-profit work. Children's laughter echoed from the playground area, where families gathered for the annual beneficiary picnic. Ariadne Everett moved through the crowd, stopping to chat with program participants, former victims of financial exploitation and their families, now rebuilding their lives through the foundation's support. Her simple sundress and approachable manner gave no indication she was married to one of America's wealthiest men. From across the lawn, Thorn watched his wife with undisguised adoration. The man once known as Manhattan's coldest CEO now smiled easily. The hard edges of his personality softened but not eliminated. The transformation had shocked the business world, though those closest to them understood its source. "Still can't believe you pulled it off," Theodore said, joining Thorne on the terrace. Now the Foundation's financial ethics director, Ariadne's father, had found renewed purpose helping others avoid predatory schemes. Which part? Thorne asked, eyes still following Ariadne. Making my daughter happy, changing yourself, both seemed equally impossible. Thorne laughed, something he did frequently now. She changed me. I just had to get out of my own way. Vivian approached, tablet in hand as always, though these days she divided her time between her role as Everett Technologies' COO and the Foundation's strategic director. The board meeting went well, she reported. The tech rehabilitation program is approved for expansion to 3 more states. Their conversation paused as Ariadne joined them, a sleepy toddler with Thorne's grey eyes and her dark hair nestled against her shoulder. Someone got overexcited, she murmured, smiling as Thorne gently took their daughter, who immediately curled into her father's chest with complete trust. The sight still amazed Ariadne, this tender, protective side of him that emerged the moment Emma was born. The man who once believed himself incapable of true connection now lived for these moments. Later that evening, with their daughter asleep and the house quiet, Thorne and Ariadne stood on their bedroom balcony, watching stars emerge above the mountains. I got a message from Caleb today, Thorne said quietly. Ariadne tensed. After serving 2 years for corporate sabotage, Caleb had disappeared to Europe. He's completed therapy, wants to make amends. Thorne's expression was contemplative. I'm considering meeting him. Are you sure? Family was always my blind spot, he admitted, but you taught me that real love means second chances without sacrificing boundaries. Ariadne leaned into him, marveling at how far they'd come. From a cold contract to a partnership built on absolute trust. Whatever you decide, we'll face it together, she promised. As Thorne drew her into his arms, Ariadne reflected on their improbable journey. A desperate agreement had brought together 2 wounded souls who never expected to find healing in each other. Their story, from suspicion to surrender, from arrangement to love, reminded her daily that the heart's capacity for transformation was limitless. The virgin sold to a billionaire had found not just love, but her own power. And the man who once bought her had discovered the one thing his wealth could never purchase, a soul's perfect match who chose him freely, completely, and without reservation.